So a couple of weeks ago, I made a video on Wild Love and Wild Eyes by Elsie Silver. And in that video, I was like, I love these books so much and I know Elsie's written other stuff. So I spent my holidays reading every single Elsie Silver book there is. And I decided to rank them all for you guys in case you're overwhelmed by all of the choices and you don't know which book's gonna fit your vibe, because on a technicality these books can be read as standalones. That's in their description, that they are all interconnected, but you can read them as standalones. I think I said this in my Becca Mac video, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I would definitely recommend reading maybe not all of the books, but like a large majority of the books and in somewhat order, because I did not read them in order. Now, it's going to start off a little rough, but for the majority of authors, that's a good thing. If you're improving in your writing, that's a good thing. And it is a bit choppy in the first series, which is the Gold Rush Ranch series, which is really hard for me to say, but it's 4 books plus a novella. So my Off to the Races copy came with, printed at the back, it's called Out of the Gate, and it is a mini love story between Vaughn, who's the male main character, his grandfather and his grandmother, because it's like the origins of the ranch. We gave it a D. A little harsh, but I'm of the opinion that if it doesn't add to the story, it shouldn't be released. And if it takes away from the story, then it definitely shouldn't be released. Like, I'm a writer, I get it. Sometimes you get little characters stuck in your head and you think, I really need to write out their story so that I get it just out of my head and I can just move on, and like, this character's like really sticking with me. A great example is Stephenie Meyer. The Twilight Saga does have a novella called The Short Second Life of Bree Tanner. What was the point of that book? It's like, that book would have been so good if Bree had been adopted by the Cullens and they actually, you know, there was a purpose to her character, but there wasn't. There wasn't in Eclipse, and there wasn't in the novella. It was just kind of random. And it's like, why do I care about his grandparents' love story when the whole time in the novella he's just like, oh, I'm too old for you, you deserve better than me, because if there's one thing Elsie Silver loves, it's an age gap. And this whole time you're like rooting for this couple, and then you read Off to the Races and he like spits in the face of their dreams, the grandfather, and then she gets sick, and instead of carrying on her dream, he decides to gamble it all away, and he fixes bets and he does all of this illegal shit. And it's like, oh, so you really weren't good enough for her. Like, let's be honest, like, this whole novella you're saying, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, I'm not good enough, and then Off to the Races you actually, you know, shitty. Like, then what was the whole point? It leaves a bitter taste in your mouth. It's like, well, that was a waste of time. Coming on from that, Off to the Races, book 1 of the Gold Rush Ranch. Yeah, Gold Rush Ranch series. We gave Off to the Races a C because it wasn't terrible, it wasn't bad. It was just very rudimentary, juvenile, first book-esque. Everything you'd expect from someone's first novel. Just very cliche. You know all those TikToks that are like, every horse girl movie ever. He's the untrainable horse. No one can train him. And then obviously she's an Olympic horse trainer, and it's his ranch and he doesn't like her. Her name's Billy, and they go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, and it's just very unoriginal. But you know, again, first book, you want to start with a solid starting point. A C is not bad, it's just average. The other reason why we gave it a C is not just because it's cliche, but also Because it's setting up a series, we are being fed a lot of information on the other characters that are going to be the main protagonists for future novels. So it's very much, I love Billy and Vaughn, but I prefer them in the other books as like cameos. I really didn't vibe with their love story as much as I vibed with some of the others. The main takeaway from this book is that, yeah, they fall in love, blah, 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 but he has an older brother called Cole, and Cole is very cold and uninviting and a miserable sack of shit, basically. And Violet is a female jockey that Billy hires to ride the untrainable horse. I say it DD, but it might be pronounced double D. Book 2, we did go a step above Off to the Races. There was improvement. For to finish, we gave a B. And again, it is the love story between Cole and Violet. Quick note about Violet. She is the only sister of 3 brothers who are the protagonists in Chestnut Spring series, which is this one. So her 3 brothers make an appearance in book 1, 2, and 5. And being the only girl, their mother died in childbirth, and so being the only girl, she's had all of these masculine figures protecting her like her entire life. And when you're that sheltered, you tend to rebel a bit, and so Violet's act of rebellion is doing saucy online photos and chats because she's like, I need enough money to get out of here, but also like I need to do something for myself, and that's online entertainment. She meets a guy, or matches with a guy called Gold Digger 85, which is just so cliche because he's a gold digger, but he's not a gold digger because he has money, but it's gold digger literally as in there's gold on the ranch and it's Gold Rush Ranch. And she matches with him and like they get talking, and he's trying to pursue her online and being like, you know, you've signed up for this, there's sort of expectations, and she kind of backs out. She's like, I just wanted someone to talk to. So instead of like actually going through with anything explicitly online, it's just a lot of banter and talking. So this book is kind of flipping between when they first met online and the present, because there is a 2-year gap. Because basically what happens is once they get close enough, Violet actually goes, okay, well, I want to take this to the next level, and they do. And then she ghosts him. She ghosts him because she expects reciprocation, and he's like, absolutely not. Like, no way. I thought you knew what you were getting into. It was very clear from the start that I don't want to show any of my body. And so she's a little hurt by that because she's spent all of this time building rapport with this person, and it was a little presumptuous that, you know, she should expect him to reciprocate, but she does, and he says no, and then she ghosts him, and she's like, okay, enough, I don't want to deal with this person anymore. And then at the start of this book, he references her username from the site because he recognizes her, because he's seen her face and her body, and she's like, oh my god, the universe is playing tricks on me. Like, how am I in the vicinity of this man? Because she doesn't know what he looks like. And she's like, oh my god, he's here, and this is going to interrupt my like life that I've carved out. Like, I'm a jockey now, I'm away from home, I'm independent, and now this man is back in my life, except now I know his actual real name. He's also an ex-military medically discharged soldier, which happens to be another theme that Elsie really likes to attach to, because in the novella he's got trauma, PTSD, he was in the military, and now Cole's in the military, and Watsy from book 5, oh my god, book 5 from the Chestnut Spring series, don't even get me started. Bo, oh my god, Bo's also in the military and medically discharged, etc, etc. What I like about this series is that there are notes to sensitivity readers, which is what I loved about this series. If you remember my previous book, I was like, I really appreciate that Elsie's actually spoken to people who like know what they're talking about, who have these lived experiences, and she's done that from the start as well, which I really appreciate. But then I went through the Chestnut Springs books, and the first four, we'll get to them, but the last Chestnut Springs book, again with Bo being in the military and the PTSD representation, I was like, this is so like, what is happening right now? And then I checked and there wasn't a sensitivity reader, so I am glad that moving forward from Hopeless with the Rose Hill series that she went back to using sensitivity readers. It shows, it really makes a difference. So yes, he's ex-military and no one knows that he's an amputee except for his mum, and then Violet finds out because they're going for a hike and a spring from his prosthetic comes loose, his leg gives out, and she's like, okay, spare leg, I'll go get it. And he's like, just leave me here to die, basically. He's so embarrassed. He's like, this is why I didn't want to show off my body, like I'm so embarrassed. Like he has all of this like kind of internalized ableism. And so again, we have the same motive of him being like, one, I'm older than you. I think they have a 10-year age gap, but I do not have a problem with this particular age gap because it's 25 and 35. And you know, there's a lot of jokes on the internet about how your brain doesn't fully develop, like the front part of your brain doesn't fully develop until you're 25. We joke about that too. It's very like a piece of science that's been passed around socially. I just want to clarify though, that study was, the funding was cut. We don't actually know that for sure. Like that study was inconclusive, but it kind of made its way around the internet and everyone was just like, huh, no, I really do feel like at 25, I did have that kind of shift. And I saw someone make a joke about how at 25, it was like Amazon had delivered the prefrontal cortex of their brain in a package, and like everything kind of lit up. It's something we relate to as well. Like 25, we were kind of like, oh, this is what it means to be an adult and alive. So I don't have a problem with this age gap. I do have a problem with some of her other age gaps though, I do. But this one's absolutely fine. So if you think that's something you're into, honestly, you could bypass off to the races and go straight to a photo finish. I don't think you're missing much. The frontrunner, we also gave a B. So the frontrunner is the love story between the town vet. So she takes care of all of the horses and everything. And this elusive, mysterious man who just showed up. So a little bit of bear lore. We were a part-time country kid growing up. And the thing you need to know about country towns is if you've been to one, you've been to them all. Especially in Australia, it's just copy paste, copy paste, copy paste. And I don't think in Canada it's much different because there was a lot of relating going on. And the thing you need to know about small country towns is that everyone knows everyone. And if you're new, no one likes you until you like they may be polite, but no one actually likes you until you've earned your position within the town. And Stefan is making it really hard for people to like him because he's being so city boy wanker and just being like throwing his money around, and he's not listening to anyone, and he's like, it's just good business. And it's like, or you could just be nice. Like he wants another jockey who harassed Violet, and then as soon as he figures that out, he like fires the jockey. But it's very much like, I just want the best, and I don't really care how I get it, but I just want the best. He also comes from quite a fractured household, and we do meet his younger sister, who he is the guardian of in this book. Now the reason I bring up her is because we see her as a teenager in this book, and we get to know her as the baby sister. And a false start is the love story between his baby sister and his best friend. The sister we know is in high school in this book, and this book actually I was going to give like an A-, And then this book happened, and this book was so horrific with the whole age gap, and I don't like her. I don't like her anymore. Here I thought she was a cool, funky teenager. Here I'm just like, oh, honey, no. And it's kind of, this book has tainted this one. I don't know if other people relate to that, but if I read a bad book, it will taint the rest in the series if it's like a character assassination, or the characters develop. In her case, just going from developmentally a teenager to a 20-year-old. 20, yes, but nevertheless, it's very cute. I'm a sucker for any man that will run through fire to get the love of his life to safety. And if you are too, this book is for you. I would not read this one by itself. I would not start with this one. If you are planning to skip books, this one, then this one, and skip a full start and off to the races. Okay, so let's talk about it. He doesn't have a military background, but he does have a traumatic brain injury from playing football. I think he went pro. I'm not gonna lie, I really struggled to read this book. You know when 19-year-olds make stupid decisions and you're like, I've been 19 once? Like, this whole book was just so yuck. Like, they start off, she's 19, she's just finished high school, she's graduated, she can legally drink, she's making her way through the bars, the book opens, she's making out with this guy who's her age, and she's like, wow, this kind of fucking sucks, because people say that, you know, kissing is meant to be nice and fucking in a bathroom is meant to be nice, and it's really grotty actually. And then Griffin walks in and he's all, I'm a man, like, that's a boy, like, that's a boy and I'm a man and I could kiss him, I could kiss you better. And she's like, prove it. So then the boy her age leaves, and then Griffin's making out with a 19-year-old. Yuck. That's a different age bracket. Nope, I lied. She's not 20, she's 21, and they have a 14-year age gap, which means he's 35. Again though, when she was 19, he was 33, and I'm not 33 yet, but as a 27-year-old, yuck. No, I did not like the opening scene of this book, and it left a really, like, if you're going to do an age gap, okay, here's the thing. If you're going to do an age gap, your audience for romance novels, these are romance novels, and so if we take critics off the table and the majority of your audience are romance readers, then if you're going to do an age gap, you have to make sure that you're feeding the needs of a romantic reader. We read a lot of romance because we love epic love stories, and if you're going to do an age gap, you need to make me believe that these two were meant for each other, like these two couldn't have anyone else, like they're so compatible and so in love, and not even time and space could, like, I need grandeur. This, no. The whole time I was like, I really don't see why, like, I see why he wants her. I don't see why she's trying to pursue a relationship with him, especially when, you know, just in the middle of Act 3, we find out he's married. What? There was no evidence of that before. Like, even like a scene at the start where it's just like, oh, a ring, it might have been his father's wedding ring, like, there was just, it came out of nowhere, blindsided me. What do you mean he's married? So then, like, he got married in Vegas and was drunk and like this whole thing. So then he has to get a divorce, and then a moment of clarity. This is why this book is a C minus, but a C and not a D. Here's the difference between this book and this book, which is a D, which we'll get to. Very similar crossovers. But this is why this is a C minus. she actually breaks up with him and she goes, I need to figure out who I am as a person, and I'm not going to ask you to wait for me, but I can't deal with all of your loose strings, and being older than me, you have a lot of loose strings, and I need to figure out who I am without you. And if we so happen to fall back together, so she's like, I'm going to university, and if we so happen to fall back together, then it'll be okay. Respect. That's why this is a C-. That warmed me a little bit. I was like, okay, good. She's not a complete fucking moron. And I get it. Like, I understand how small towns work. A graduating class, you either marry your high school sweetheart or you leave. And if you come back, it's because you've gone to the big city, figured out that it's not your place, and you come back. And by the time you come back a couple of years later, there's, for lack of a better word, a fresh cohort of dating pool to kind of explore. And so I get why no one really flinches. Like, this whole time he's like, how's your brother going to react? And her brother's absolutely fine with it. And I'm just like, I don't think that's realistic. But the rest of the town not flinching, yeah, that's kind of realistic. It's quite common for age gap romances in small towns. Hence, Elsie Silver's affinity for the West. Would I read it again? No. Would I recommend it to someone? No. A disappointing end to the series? Yes. On to the Chestnut Spring series, which is the series that Elsie wrote afterwards. Now, remember what I said about Violet Eaton? Well, in Flawless, which is book 1 of Chestnut Springs, we meet Violet's family, including her brother Rhett, who is a professional bull rider. That was kind of his act of rebellion because he's the youngest brother. He's still older than Violet, but he's the youngest brother. And his whole thing is like, he doesn't even care what happens to him. Like, he loves danger. He rides bulls. It's a very dangerous sport. You can get thrown off, crushed, killed. And this book starts because he's in a bit of hot water. He's just been seen on film saying that he hates milk, and his biggest sponsor is a milk brand, and all of his brands start dropping him, and like, it's so stupid. But like, am I surprised? No. Cancel culture really be cancelling him over milk. So Rhett's manager Kip sets him up with a kind of live-in PR manager, quote-unquote babysitter, and it turns out it's his daughter Summer who works for the company. So Summer and Rhett, they are the love story of book number 1. And again, like, off to the races. It's book 1, it's setting everything up, we're introduced to all of these characters, and because of that, I don't love their story as much because it feels like a lot of the time is dedicated to introducing us to other people instead of focusing on their love story. Nevertheless, I gave it a B because it is slightly less cliche than Off to the Races, and it was quite interesting. I feel like by the time Elsie got to Flawless, this is book 5, if we don't count the novella, which we won't, and she's kind of found her groove and her style. The banter is better, the dialogue is better, it is still cliche but less cliche, and it was an enjoyable read. B. Book number 2 is Violet and Rhett's oldest brother, Cade. Not to be confused with Cole, who's the other brother from the series. I'm getting them confused a lot because they have the same fucking personality. Someone joked that the Chestnut Springs series is literally the Gold Rush Ranch series, but written better, and again, they're not wrong. I really liked it. It's Summer's best friend Willa and Cade, the older brother. Now again, he is very broody and very nonchalant and cold, except he has a son. And Willa, who's like free with the wind, Willa, is going to be the new nanny of his son, because after scouting the town, after scouting Chestnut Springs for a nanny, it's very clear that everyone only wants to be the nanny to get closer to Kay because he's single, he's chronically single. Luke is the son. Willa really adores Luke and he's really cute. They have a lot of cute moments. Luke's very cheeky and he grows close to Willa. Willa doesn't want to complicate things with Kay because it's complicated. She doesn't want to get too attached to Luke, but then have to leave at the end of the summer. Like they have kind of a timeline trope and they're running out of time because she will leave at the end of the season. But he's also a bit older than her too. But again, Willa is over 25 and can make her own decisions and kind of is a lot more developed socially as an adult. So I was not mad about this age gap either. Again, if you're going to do an age gap, you have to make me think that this couple was meant for each other. And in Heartless, Elsie Silver pulls that off. I don't like the trope of sudden pregnancy. It's just something that my personal taste. I don't like pregnancy tropes. I don't like to read about it. But as soon as she was just like, oh, I feel nauseous, I'm like, oh my fucking god, how did this happen when they're using protection? And then she gets the flu, obviously, and she was throwing up and she threw up her contraception, and by the miracle of the stars. And I was like, oh, no. But in saying that, the way Elsie wrote it, I didn't hate it. But that is the reason, for me personally, it's not an S tier. It kind of was a storyline for storyline's sake. It could have used without it, but it also makes me feel like they didn't get the chance to really develop a relationship further before they decided to have more kids. And that's just something I struggle with. Next we have Powerless, which is the third book in the Chestnut Spring series. Now, this isn't a brother or a sister. This is Violet and the boys' cousin and their adoptive brother, but not officially adopted, like not on paper, but he is kind of abandoned and left on his own in middle school after a traumatic accident. His parents kind of just dipped. One went on to live another life, new family, and the other, obviously after losing his sister, the other went on a self-medicating journey, let's call it that. But they both kind of dipped on him when he was, I think he's 12, 13. And Bo, the middle brother, kind of adopts him and is like, you're coming home with my family. Like, the Eatons will take you, we will take you. So they see him as their brother. And so when they get together, the cousin and the brother that aren't actually related, there are so many cousin brother jokes that it fell to a B for me. It was not funny. By the second time, like a one-off comment, I would have been like, haha, okay, let's move on. No, we have to bring it up. Like, it had to be brought up so many times. Elsie's clearly been infected with the hockey hype. Jasper is a hockey player. He's a goalie professionally for the NHL, and Sloane is a professional ballet dancer. So they're both athletic. They're both very much aesthetically go together. And it's the trope of best friends, like long-term best friend to lovers. Now, I love that trope. This ice hockey ballerina trope, love, you see that all the time in fan fiction. Like, I should have loved this book so much. It had everything that I could want in a book, except it didn't, and I gave it a B. I thought for sure this was going to be my favorite. Like, after reading the descriptions, I was like, this is going to be my favorite one. No, it did not hit the mark for me, and the reason why is because when I read a best friends to lovers romance, I want to feel like they have both been pining for each other. And she tried to write that. She tried to, at the end, spin it like he's been in love with her also the whole time. But for me, that came in too late. It came in way too late. This whole time, she's frothing over this man. She's frothing. She's fighting girls in clubs over this man who is like very much keeping her at a distance. If it was mutual pining, I needed him to pine a lot earlier. Not if it was just one POV. Like obviously if it was just a novel from Sloane's perspective, then it was timed at the right moment. However, it's dual POV. We're inside his mind, half of this book. Like, give me some juice, give me some like something. But this whole time, inside his mind, the first like 3/4 of the book, he's like, Sloane's so nice. I'm glad I have Sloane here. And it's like, I need lust, I need pining. I need him to be as obsessed with her as she is obsessed with him. And because she's in love with him more, it felt so awkward because I was just like, oh my god, sweetie, like there's no there's no equality here. Like she's simping so hard and he's just like, Sloane's nice. And I was planning to ask her out once, but then her dad told me not to because it would ruin her ballet career, and he would ruin my career, and I can't corrupt his socialite princess because I come from a bad background and an unacceptable background. And what? Reckless. Finally, we have our first S tier with Reckless. Reckless is the love story of Summer's sister Winter and Theo, who's a bull rider like Rhett and is kind of like Rhett's protege, also managed by Kip, who you remember is Summer's dad. Now, Winter and Summer, they're siblings. They're half siblings because Kip had an affair on Winter's mum. Winter's the older sister, and he basically fucked the nanny, Winter's nanny, got her pregnant, and then Summer was born. Did they divorce? No. So this whole time, Summer, Winter, like there's kind of like two camps. There's Winter's mum and Winter, and Rhett and Summer, and they've really created a rift between the sisters to the point where they don't really talk. And we find out Summer in book 1, we find out that Summer was sick as a child/teenager. She grew close to one of her doctors. And then when she was a teenager, 19 I think, she fucked him because she met him on the outside. And it's like, that's grooming, but also yuck, but also he could lose his license for that. And he kind of kept stringing Summer along of just like, don't tell anyone, this is like very forbidden, like I could lose my job. And then, and you know, being young, this is why you cannot convince me that these two make it, because this whole time Summer has been like, oh my god, this man, like he loves me and it's like true love. And then he turns around and goes, I'm marrying Winter. Winter, who's also in medicine, who doesn't know that he's been fucking her younger sister because it's all secret, and Winter would go straight to, you know, the medical board to get his license removed. But imagine being Summer and this man who you've opened up to and trusted as a young 20-something has turned around and gone, actually, I'm marrying your sister. And then instead of giving Summer a clean break, he strings her along. Like, he just strings her along. And she opens up to Rhett about this. And then Rhett in book 1 confronts him at the hospital, and Winter overhears. So in Reckless, Winter's finalized her divorce, because obviously she's not going to stay with the man who groomed her little sister and who's been lying to her. So she has divorced him, and she's trying to reconnect with Summer, and Summer invites her to a family dinner. So she's like, yeah, well, I'll go along. And she ends up meeting Theo, and they don't get along. But it's kind of cute, but then they don't get along. But they've got that banter. And so she goes, I'm going into town, I can't be at this family dinner. And he's like, well, I'll make sure you get there safe. They both get drunk in a bar, they fuck, and then she ends up pregnant. Yeah, this is where this is going. And it's a big deal because she was pregnant in book 1 with like Summer when all of that came out, and then she miscarried and she lost the baby. So her being pregnant, she doesn't want to do any sort of termination process because this is something she really wants. And so she texts Theo and she's like, you know, this is something I've always wanted, and I understand if you don't want to be a part of the child's life, but I just thought you should know, and you know, I wanted to say this face to face, but you won't answer the phone. And that's because Theo is going on a social media cleanse and has given his phone to the secretary, Rhett's secretary, and is just like, oh, you know, just tell me if there's anything important. And the secretary's like, yeah, okay. He gets a text message from Winter and he's like, nah, I won't pass it on to Theo, not that important. And texts back, thanks for letting me know, on Theo's behalf. So Theo doesn't know, and Winter assumes that that's Theo texting, and it's such a mess. It's such a mess. And then he shows up like 18 months later, and he's oblivious. He's going around like, hey Winter, how are you? Thought we could reconnect. And she's like, are you fucking kidding me right now? Like, that's not even funny. You could have, like, there's so many nice ways you could have said, hey, it's not going to work, or hey, I'm not ready. You could have backed out and just left me, but thanks for letting me know. That was so cold. After everything, that was so cold. But as soon as he finds out that he's the dad, he's a girl dad. This man, I love him. I love her too, because everyone kind of thinks that Winter's bitchy because of the way that her and Summer were raised, and because of the rift. Everyone's like, I'm gonna pick sides, and Summer the whole time's like, I don't want anyone to pick sides. Like, I'm trying to repair my relationship with my sister. I don't want anyone to pick sides. Can you pick our combined side? Like I need everyone to help her because she's going through a lot. So yes, I love them, and I think that they're awesome, and I love him and I love her, and it's so romantic. They're like only 2 years apart as well. He's 2 years younger, and so they have that like banter because they're from the same generation. I'm sorry, I don't mean to like be judgmental in terms of like the other couples, but this just works so well for me. I have no notes. There was not one part of this book where I was like, I wish she didn't write that. The dialogue, perfect. It just made me so happy. Honestly, it made me so happy. I love that they have a fight where like his paternity is pulled into question and he's just flying off the handles. He's just like, is she even mine? And Winter's like, that was a really hurtful thing to say. And then she shows, because he's touring with the bull riding, she shows up at his hotel and he's just like, I'm so sorry. And she was like, yeah, it was really shitty. Get out of the doorway. We're going to sit and talk about it because that's how we're going to do things moving forward in our family. And so there was no like long periods of time where the reader was kind of left in that sort of awkward like miscommunication. We're not understanding like I really love when I don't have to wait for a resolution. There was a resolution the next chapter, and I really appreciated it. No notes, S tier. We're here. We are here. Hopeless, the only other D tier book. Now, in Powerless, which you remember is the cousin brother but not really romance, we find out that Bo's missing in action. He's MIA. He's a very high tier military soldier, like he goes on the missions, like he's like high rank, and he's gone missing. Now he does end up getting found, and in Reckless we find out that he's not doing so well. So in Hopeless he's still kind of dealing with his PTSD, except instead of doing a Cole, who you'll remember is Vaughn's older brother, who's with Violet, the younger sister, who's the trainer. Book 2, you remember, they also have an age gap. He's also ex-military, he's the amputee. He's in therapy. Like this whole time, he's talking to his therapist. Bo, on the other hand, has decided that he's too good for therapy, and it's been suggested to him multiple times. Also, being ex-military and being like medically discharged, I refuse to believe that his therapy wouldn't be paid for. Like, this is not America, this is Canada, and I know how it works here in Australia, so I'm assuming it's very similar. His therapy would be paid for. So he has access to a service that many people need and can't afford, and he's just spitting in the face of it because he's just decided, yeah, I don't need it because I've self-diagnosed myself with PTSD. That's not the point of therapy, Bo. The point of therapy isn't to get a diagnosis. That might be a therapy goal, like a singular therapy goal, but there's more to therapy than that. So he's having a sook this whole book, and it's kind of like he's going through the grieving process. When you get diagnosed with a long-term illness or disability, there is a grieving period. It's like, wow, my life will never be the same. I will never get back here. And people will always be like, get better soon. And it's like, thanks, I won't. This is forever. And I've done it. I've been there. I've done that. We have so many disabilities like that will be with us for the rest of our life. And that's not negative thinking. That's like medically, that is my prognosis. And that's the prognosis for people who have CPTSD. If you don't know the difference, PTSD is a singular event or multiple events in a short amount of time. CPTSD, complex PTSD, is trauma over a very long period of time. Multiple traumas over a long period of time. In our case, also having DID, that would be around 22 years. He is 35, and Bailey, who's, apologies for the dark lighting, but my computer will overheat and I'm using natural light, so I need to put my shade down a little. Anyways, Bailey, bartender. She's started when she was a teenager. Again, she's now, I think, 20, 21. She's a virgin and she's just basically horny for life. She makes a sex joke in every single chapter and she's kind of just obsessed with this idea. Also, I don't know if you can be a virgin, like when you are fucking your sex toys to the degree that she is playing with them. Like, I don't know where you draw the line. Like, does someone have to be in the room? But okay, sure. And so Bo's all like, I can't touch her because she's younger than me. And instead of, look, the honest truth is this: a false start was going to be a D until I read Hopeless, and I was like, there's no way that I can rate this book the same as this one. This is not even a D. This is an E, F, like this is a Z. This book, I don't know how it got passed through the whole publishing process. I guess by now this is book 9, but still, again, no sensitivity reader, and she really needed one. And it just, Bailey comes from quite a turbulent background. Her brothers are making her pay rent for the land on which her trailer is on, and their dad is in and out of jail, and all of her brothers are druggies, so her goal is to get money and escape Chestnut Springs. Bo is drunk at the bar every single day to self-medicate from his trauma, so she's obviously providing him with alcohol, and he just admits that he's been driving home drunk, which, no, not sexy. Like, how am I meant to root? I didn't root for either of them. I hated both of them. I started the book hating both of them, and I ended the book hating both of them. There is not a singular redeeming feature for either of them. With the false start, because she's like, hang on a second, there's a power play here, you're older than me, I don't know who I am, and they do break up and then they get back together. And because it's the end of the series, it goes years and years and years ahead, and we do see how their relationship progresses, as well as the other characters in the Gold Rush Ranch series. We get to see that they stay together. You cannot convince me that as soon as Bailey gets to the big city, she doesn't leave. Like, it's not romantic. Like, none of this is romantic. This is not just to get to the point where Sylvie acknowledges that grooming has happened here. I think this was in Reckless with Summer and how she was groomed by the doctor. I think this was Elsie Silver's way of being like, let me correct what happened here. Because, yeah, grooming as well. Here, to go from S tier to Z, like, hello? It wasn't romantic. At one point she's like, he's so predatory, and I'm like, ooh, word choice. I've said it before, I'll say it again. If you're going to write an age gap, you have to make me believe that these two belong together. No, they don't have a singular point to bond over. They don't. They really have no points to bond over. So the whole point of this book is they're going to fake marry. He's proposed to her because he doesn't believe that people treat her differently because of her last name, because of the family she's from. And he's like, oh, don't worry, I'll give you mine. You can become an Eton. And in return, my family is going to get off my back because they've been harassing me about getting better, going to therapy, getting something to do. And it's like, I mean, yeah, they need to lay off, but also they're not wrong. Like, you should be in therapy. He's in his 30s. He's a millennial. You're telling me a millennial isn't going to go to therapy for free? And she needs therapy too. Don't get me wrong, she needs therapy too. But then she's like, I'm moving to the city, and it's just so, they're so incompatible. And it's not even sexy when they actually get together. It's not even sexy the whole time. I felt like I'm watching a young girl fawn to an older man so that she could get what she wanted, and what she wanted is to leave Chestnut Springs. Now, if you don't know what fawning is, fight or flight, and then there are 3 more: freeze, fawn, flop. And fawn is basically just like doing everything that that person says to do, or like trying to romanticize a situation in a way to escape. Like, don't kill me because I'm so pretty and I have other things to offer you. Like, that's fawning. That's that whole, you know, I have, like, it's coming up with anything you can say or do to get out of a dangerous situation. And the fact that she called him predatory, I'm just like, okay, so like, this is not actually romantic. And it's not like we get the age gap comment once. Just like with Powerless, when it was the whole like cousin brother comment 1,000 times. Oh, we know, she makes it clear in every single, I checked, every single chapter there is a joke about their age gap, or there's some comment about their age gap. And then right at the end, when you think it can't get any worse, we find out that he secretly owns the bar. So he's actually her boss. I'm all for a power play trope, but it's not sexy when one person knows that it's a power play and the other person doesn't. Like, this is multi-layered now. We don't just have the icky grooming power play of the age. We also now have the power play of boss and employee, except she didn't know that she was his employee. This whole time he's been pulling the strings. Again, this isn't romantic. You're writing to an audience of romance readers, Elsie. Finally, we have Wild Love and Wild Eyes. Now, I've already made a video on these 2 books, and I will link it below and you can watch it because this video has been going on long enough. I gave Wild Love an A and I gave Wild Eyes an S because I love this book so much. I love him so much. Apologies that it took us a while to make this video. We did actually finish reading in the first week of December. We planned to make this video, but we ended up having a major allergy flare. Like, Melbourne spring is next level. and they were so bad we had to go to our GP to get allergy medicine, but then we ended up having an allergic reaction to the allergy medicine because we have some allergies to certain medications, and she was like, that's fine, there's another one you can take. So I took that one instead, and we had an allergic reaction to that one as well. So she was like, okay, well, now you're just reacting to every antihistamine. And I was like, yeah, I'm fucking sick. And she was like, and I was like, so what am I gonna do? And she was like, plan C is waiting and just staying inside. And I was like, yay! So yes, we're back. We've been making playlists in the meantime, and look at this Taylor Swift board we made. I'll have to show you guys a close-up because I'm so obsessed. But basically I used my iPad and I made myself posters with lyrics, and I'm really happy with them, and I thought it would be a really nice background for future videos as well. So that's it for this video. If you liked it and want to see more book content, subscribe and hit the bell button. Also, just quickly, because I want to show it off, I get really bad post-Christmas depression because Christmas is my favorite holiday of the year, and my partner has bought me this beautiful Christmas tree so that now that Christmas is over, I still have a little piece of it, and I get to carry Christmas with me for the rest of the year until December. So everyone say hello to Christopher.